I'm not saying you have to cut people off, never speak to them again. I am saying you should put up some boundaries. You don't have to make a big announcement. Like I did, just little by little, spend less and less time with that person. If you don't get the wrong people out of your life, you'll never meet the right ones.
In 2020, while millions lost their jobs, Joel Osteen's church quietly took $4.4 million from a government program meant for struggling small businesses. This wasn't a poor church begging for help. This was America's largest megachurch, with nearly $90 million coming in each year. When people found out, the backlash was instant. But the money scandal was just the beginning. Behind Osteen's famous smile and positive messages lies a story of locked doors during disasters, family secrets, and a business model that made him worth $100 million. Today, we're exposing what really happens when faith becomes a fortune. Joel Scott Osteen was born on March 5, 1963, in Houston, Texas. He was one of 6 children in a family that lived and breathed church life. His father, John Osteen, had once been a Southern Baptist pastor, but everything changed in 1958 when Joel's sister Lisa was born with serious health problems. That moment shook John deeply. He left his old ways behind and started preaching about healing and miracles. In 1959, just a year later, John and his wife Dodie started Lakewood Church inside an old feed store in Houston. At first, it was small, only 234 seats, but it carried something powerful. Slowly, the church began to grow. Joel grew up surrounded by faith and family. His sister Lisa would go on to become a pastor herself, and his brother Paul became a surgeon who also worked as a missionary. Their home was filled with prayer, hope, and a belief that anything was possible with faith. In 1981, Joel graduated from Humble High School. That same year, their mother Dodie was diagnosed with terminal cancer, but she believed she would live, and she did. That only made their faith stronger. By then, Joel already knew he wasn't like the others. He didn't want to preach. He was shy and quiet and loved working behind the scenes, especially with cameras. After high school, he went to Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma to study television and radio, but he didn't stay long. In 1982, just 19 years old, Joel dropped out and came back home. He wasn't lost, though. He had a plan. He started Lakewood's television ministry from scratch, running everything himself. He picked the right cameras, lights, even what clothes his father should wear each Sunday. Joel spent 17 years doing this. While his family stood on stage, he sat in the back, editing, directing, and making sure the message reached more people every week. He didn't have a degree, but he was building something huge. All those years, John Osteen kept asking his son to preach. Joel always said no. He'd say, "Daddy, you're the preacher. I'll just make you look good." But everything changed in January 1999. Joel finally said yes. On January 17th, he preached his very first sermon. He was nervous and unsure, but he did it anyway. 6 days later, something terrible happened. John Osteen died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 77. That one sermon Joel gave turned out to be the last one his father ever heard. Suddenly, Joel wasn't just the man behind the camera anymore. He was the only one left who could lead the church. On June 7th, 1999, Joel Osteen officially became the senior pastor of Lakewood Church. He had no formal training, no seminary degree, and barely any preaching experience. But he had something else. He had watched his father for years. He knew how to speak from the heart. He didn't shout or warn about hell. He spoke about hope, kindness, and believing in a better tomorrow. His messages were simple and positive. He smiled a lot. People started calling him the smiling preacher. Some critics said he was too soft, that he didn't preach the real gospel, but millions of others felt he was exactly what they needed. Under Joel's leadership, Lakewood Church exploded in size. When he took over, about 8,000 people came each week. By 2004, that number had jumped to over 25,000. Joel didn't just rely on sermons. He doubled the church's TV budget, bought better airtime, and put up billboards. He turned Lakewood into a national name, but they needed more space. In 2003, he made a bold move. He led the church in taking over the Compaq Center, a massive arena in Houston that used to host NBA games. The church signed a 30-year lease for $12 million and agreed to spend around $90 million to rebuild the inside. That number was huge huge, and many people were shocked, but Joel believed it was worth it. The renovation took 15 months. They added 5 floors inside, filled the building with classrooms, offices, and a state-of-the-art broadcast studio. There were indoor waterfalls and brand new carpets everywhere. In July 2005, they opened the doors. On July 16, 2005, Lakewood held its first service in the new building. It seated 16,000 people, and every seat was full. That same year, the church's weekly attendance passed 40,000, and their TV broadcast reached over 100 countries. Joel's message was now global. By 2010, Lakewood had bought the Compaq Center outright for $7.5 million, and Joel didn't stop there. In 2014, he launched a 24-hour Sirius XM radio station. His Night of Hope events packed stadium. He became one of the most famous pastors in the world. His book, Your Best Life Now, became a bestseller, selling millions of copies. He preached to over 10 million people each week just in the United States. And his message stayed the same. Let go of the past, trust God, speak good things over your life, and expect blessings. In October 2004, Joel Osteen released a book called Your Best Life Now. At first, it seemed like just another self-help book with Christian ideas mixed in. But within just 3 months, by December 2004, it had already sold over 500,000 copies. People were buying it faster than anyone expected, and it won a Gold Book Award. Then, by May 2005, it crossed 1 million sales and earned the Platinum Book Award. What shocked everyone even more was how long the book stayed on the New York Times bestseller list. It remained there for more than 200 weeks in a row, which is almost 4 straight years. That kind of run is extremely rare, especially for a pastor writing his very first book. Over time, it sold more than 4 million copies all over the world. The book was simple but powerful. It talked about staying positive, having faith, and believing in a better future. But the message wasn't just for churchgoers. People of all backgrounds picked it up because it felt warm and full of hope. Joel's way of writing was casual and friendly, not preachy or complicated. That helped him reach people who might never have read a religious book before. Because of this book, Joel didn't just become a best-selling author. He became a well-known name across the country and around the world. He also changed how Christian writers thought about reaching bigger audiences. But what came next surprised people even more. Many assumed Joel Osteen was wealthy because of donations to his church, Lakewood. But that wasn't the full story. Joel made a careful decision to stop taking any salary from the church starting in 2005. Instead, he focused on building something bigger. He turned himself into a brand. He wrote more than 15 books, and at least 7 of them became New York Times bestsellers. These books brought in millions of dollars. One book from 2005 called Become a Better You earned him about $13 million just in royalties and advance payments. But Joel didn't stop there. He began doing live speaking events, often charging up to $100,000 or even $200,000 per appearance. He filled stadiums and arenas where basketball games and concerts are usually held. He also launched a wide range of merchandise, from books and CDs to clothing and gifts, all sold online and at Lakewood's huge gift shop. On social media, Joel built massive audiences. He had over 25 million followers on Facebook, 10 million on Twitter, and another 5 million on Instagram. These platforms didn't just help spread his message, they also gave him a way to make even more money through sponsored content and digital outreach. All of this added up. By now, his personal fortune is estimated at around $100 million. He created a business model where he could appear humble and detached from money while quietly building a media empire behind the scenes. Then, in 2013, Joel took things in a whole new direction. He started something called the Night of Hope Tour. Instead of just preaching in a church, he booked some of the biggest arenas in America. These weren't free events. People bought tickets, usually for around $15, and they came in droves. One event on March 11, 2013, filled Miami's American Airlines Arena, which holds over 20,000 people. And this wasn't just a one-time thing. The tour continued in cities like New York, Los Angeles, and others. The arenas kept filling up. By 2019, he had taken Night of Hope overseas, selling out London's Wembley Arena. The shows felt more like major concerts than sermons. They had lights, music, powerful speeches, and huge crowds. In 2017 alone, Lakewood Church spent $6.7 million on putting on these events. That shows just how massive they had become, both in scale and in prophet. Joel's rise didn't happen by chance. It came from careful planning, especially when it came to media. Instead of limiting himself to Christian channels, he went for something bigger. He appeared on major shows like Oprah, Good Morning America, and Larry King Live. His 2005 interview with Larry King was a turning point. It introduced his optimistic message to millions of people across America. In 2012, he sat down with Oprah again and talked about the criticism he got for preaching prosperity. He explained it differently, saying he simply wanted people to feel hopeful and see a better life ahead. He didn't talk about strict religious rules. He talked about being happy, growing stronger, and believing that things would get better. This made him more than just a preacher. It made him a motivational speaker who appealed to people who didn't even go to church. Joel Osteen wasn't expecting anything unusual the day he walked into a jewelry store in Houston in 1985. He just needed a new battery for his watch. But that quick errand changed his entire life. Behind the counter was a young woman named Victoria Iloff. She was working there while studying psychology at the University of Houston. Joel didn't know it then, but the woman selling watch batteries would become his wife, his partner in faith, and one of the most powerful women in American religion. They got married on April 4th, 1987, just 2 years after that unexpected meeting. That one small moment inside a jewelry store turned into a lifelong partnership that would eventually touch millions of people around the world. Victoria had grown up surrounded by two powerful forces, science and faith. Her father, Donald Iloff, worked as an engineer at NASA, helping develop the Saturn rocket. Her mother was deeply religious and taught Sunday school every week. When Victoria married Joel, he was still working behind the scenes at his father's church. At first, she played a quiet role, helping count offerings and support Joel's work. But over time, she stepped into the spotlight. In 2003, she started the women's ministry at Lakewood Church, and it quickly began to impact thousands of lives every year. By 2008, she had become a best-selling author. Her first book, Love Your Life, had a first print run of 750,000 copies and reached number 2 on the New York Times list. Her soft voice and calm presence on stage became just as familiar to viewers as Joel's sermons. She had gone from helping customers in a jewelry shop to becoming one of the most recognized female pastors in America. Their 2 children, Jonathan and Alexandra, were born in the mid to late 1990s. Jonathan on April 20th, 1995, and Alexandra on November 9th, 1998. Growing up, they were surrounded by cameras, crowds, and church events. But instead of stepping away, they chose to follow in their parents' footsteps. Jonathan studied radio, television, and film at the University of Texas and graduated in 2017. Even before finishing school, he was already leading worship and writing songs. In 2019, he gave his first sermon on Father's Day. Alexandra also joined in. She became a key voice in Lakewood's worship band. And their group, called El Waya, has had songs streamed by hundreds of thousands of people. One of their songs, I've Got a Fire, became especially popular. Together, they aren't just filling in, they're shaping the future of the church. But as the church grew, so did public attention. The Osteen family moved into a massive home in River Oaks, one of Houston's richest neighborhoods. The house cost $10.5 million and was over 17,000 square feet. It had 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, 3 elevators, and a driveway big enough for more than 20 cars. People began to question how a pastor could live in such luxury. Joel later explained that he doesn't take a salary from the church. Instead, his income comes from his books and speaking events. But the mansion still became a symbol of what many see as the most controversial part of his message, the idea that God rewards faith with wealth. That message is called the prosperity gospel, and it has caused a lot of arguments in the Christian world. The Osteen family runs Lakewood Church almost like a family business. Joel is the senior pastor. Victoria is the co-pastor. Their kids are deeply involved in music and ministry. Joel's siblings also play important roles. His brother Paul is both a surgeon and a missionary. His sister Lisa writes books and often speaks at church events. The church has a yearly budget of about $70 million. Some people admire the way the family works together. Others say it feels like a private club with too much power staying in one family. But no one can deny that this close-knit group helped Lakewood grow into a global ministry, reaching over 200 million homes with their broadcasts. Joel's teachings are rooted in something called the Word of Faith movement. This started started in the mid-1900s with preachers like Kenneth Hagin. The basic idea is that strong belief and positive words can bring blessings, healing, and even money. Joel often tells his audience that God wants them to live without debt, to be healthy, and to succeed in life. His sermons are watched by millions every week, and his net worth is estimated to be between $40 and $60 million. But many pastors and scholars think his message is dangerous. They say it puts the blame on people who are sick or poor, making them feel like they just don't believe hard enough. They also say it turns Christianity into a self-help system and forgets the deeper message about sacrifice, repentance, and grace. Another reason people criticize Joel is because he avoids topics like sin, hell, and judgment. In interviews, he's said that he wants to keep his messages positive. He doesn't want to focus on fear. His books and sermons often talk about believing in yourself, staying hopeful, and keeping a good attitude. He's even said, "I'm not trying to follow a set of rules and stuff. I'm just living my life." His fans love this approach because it's simple and uplifting, but theologians argue that it's missing the heart of the Christian faith. Instead of calling people to change and seek forgiveness, Joel focuses on boosting self-esteem. Some have even called it Christianity without a cross. It sounds sweet, they say, but it leaves out the truth about sin and the need for redemption. Joel has been called a heretic by more than a few respected Christian leaders. Michael Horton from Westminster Seminary once said that Joel's message treats God like a tool for getting rich and happy, rather than a lord to be obeyed. He compared Joel's preaching to pulling lucky messages from a fortune cookie, always talking about blessings but rarely about struggle. J.I. Packer also warned that any teaching that skips over repentance is deeply flawed. Many argue that prosperity theology flips the Bible's message upside down. Instead of warning about greed, it encourages people to see money as proof of God's favor. Even Jesus warned that life isn't about having lots of things. But Joel's version of faith seems to say the opposite. Even the church's practices have caused confusion. For years, people noticed that Lakewood rarely held baptisms or communion during their regular services. Some wondered if the church was skipping over two of Christianity's most sacred traditions. Officially, Lakewood says it supports both. And in April 2025, Joel did lead a huge baptism event where hundreds of people were baptized at once. Communion is also celebrated, just not every week. Still, many feel that these acts of faith are pushed aside in favor of more upbeat messaging and emotional moments. Critics say that's a problem. Church isn't just about feeling good, they argue. It's also about remembering sacred truths and staying connected to the roots of Christian faith. One more thing that sets Joel apart is the way he delivers his sermons. He doesn't use notes. He writes the entire message ahead of time, then memorizes it completely. Sometimes he even records himself and watches it back, like an actor getting ready for a role. Each message is timed down to the second, usually 27 minutes long, perfect for TV. This style has helped him connect with millions. He makes eye contact, he smiles, he speaks clearly. But some pastors say that style comes at a cost. His sermons don't go deep into the Bible. There aren't many scripture references, and the calls to salvation at the end often feel rushed or disconnected from the rest of the message. His father, John Osteen, preached in a very different way, more traditional and Bible-focused. The difference shows just how much things have changed in one generation. In the middle of 2020, when the world was struggling through lockdowns and job losses, one thing shocked almost everyone. Lakewood Church in Houston, the biggest megachurch in the United States, quietly took a $4.4 million loan from a special government program meant to help small businesses survive the pandemic. That program was called the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP. It was designed to help places that were barely staying afloat, not giant churches with nearly $90 million in annual income. Joel Osteen, who led the church and was already known to be worth somewhere between $50 and $100 million, instantly came under fire. The backlash was fast and harsh. People couldn't believe a rich church and a rich pastor would take money meant for struggling shopkeepers and workers. The loan paid salaries for around 370 people during the 7 months when the church had no in-person services. It was also the third largest loan in the entire Houston area that month. People were angry. Many felt it crossed a line between church and state. In October 2021, under heavy pressure, Lakewood returned the full $4.4 million. They claimed Joel and his wife Victoria didn't take a single dollar from it, but the damage to their reputation was already done. And that wasn't the only part of Lakewood's money story that raised eyebrows. In 2017, out of the church's nearly $90 million budget, only about $1.2 million went to missions and outreach. That's just 1.3%. Instead, more than $25 million was spent on Joel's TV broadcasts. Almost $32 million went toward weekly events, and another $11.9 million on fundraising. These numbers made critics ask a painful question. Was Lakewood really a church helping the poor, or just a massive media machine selling inspiration? Joel Osteen often told people he hadn't taken a salary from the church since 2004 or 2005, but his money came from somewhere else. His books made him millions. His first one, Your Best Life Now, came out in 2004 and sold over 4 million copies. It stayed on bestseller lists for 200 weeks. His next book brought him $13 million more. By 2010, Joel and Victoria were living in a $10.5 million mansion that later rose to a value of $16 million. They also owned another home worth $3 million. Even though he said he didn't get paid by the church, Joel was now one of the richest religious leaders in the world. In August 2011, things got messier. A band called the American Dollars sued Lakewood for $3 million. They said the church had used their song in ads for a DVD after their music license had expired. The band claimed the church was breaking copyright law and dragging them into a message they didn't support. The case lasted months. In February 2012, a judge ruled in favor of the church, saying the license did cover the music use. But the lawsuit exposed just how big and risky Lakewood's media operations had become. Then came Hurricane Harvey in August 2017. The storm hit Houston hard. Thousands were left homeless. People needed shelter. Lakewood Church could seat over 16,000 people. But when the storm came, the doors stayed shut. The church posted online saying the building had flooded. But then, videos started going viral. They showed the church dry and fully accessible. People were furious. Celebrities and regular folks demanded the church open its doors. Hashtags like Open Lakewood Church trended everywhere. Only after days of public outrage did Lakewood finally become a shelter. But many believed it was too late. The damage was done. The city needed help, and one of its richest churches hadn't been there. The delay didn't just upset Houston. It sparked national debate. The city's main convention center was packed with over 8,000 evacuees. People asked why Lakewood wasn't helping from day one. Joel Osteen said the church was just waiting for city shelters to fill, but eyewitnesses saw the church doors locked and guarded. Meanwhile, local businesses like Gallery Furniture opened up right away. The difference was hard to ignore. Osteen's image as a kind leader took a hit that hasn't fully healed, even years later. In July 2025, it happened again. Hurricane Beryl knocked out power all over Houston. This time, Lakewood handed out water and food and opened its doors early. But memories of 2017 were still fresh. Jokes and memes popped up online, accusing Osteen of locking the doors again. Even though the church tried to help, trust was already broken. One member even admitted he was shocked the church opened at all. That moment showed how badly a single mistake can follow you for years. Back in 2014, another painful moment happened inside the church wall. A family said their 18-month-old daughter was hurt during a service. According to their lawsuit, a church worker grabbed the toddler's seat, with her still inside, and tossed it off a pew. The baby hit the floor face first. The family said she suffered emotional and physical injury. They left Texas completely after that. Lakewood denied it happened, but court records show the church eventually paid the family $15,000 to settle. It didn't erase the fear or the feeling that something had gone deeply wrong. Then came the most horrifying event of all. On February 11, 2024, during a Spanish-language service, a woman named Janesi Yvonne Moreno walked into Lakewood Church with her 7-year-old son. Hidden under her trench coat was an AR-15 rifle. In her bag was another gun, and what she said was a bomb. She opened fire inside the church hallway, hitting a man in the leg. 2 off-duty officers working security responded fast. In the chaos, Moreno was killed, but her son, Samuel, was hit in the head. The little boy's injury was beyond tragic. Doctors had to remove half of his right skull. He lost much of his frontal lobe. He stopped breathing more than once. His grandmother, Rabbi Charlie Carranza gave updates, calling the situation a nightmare. After 13 days, Samuel was finally taken off the ventilator. He survived, but his future was uncertain. A church volunteer was also injured but recovered. The shooting shocked the country. Moreno had a long history of schizophrenia and violent behavior. Yet just 2 months before, she legally bought the AR-15. That raised painful questions about gun laws in Texas. There was no red flag law to stop her. People also wondered how Lakewood, with all its money and security, had let this happen. Moreno had walked right in with heavy weapons. She even pointed her rifle at a security guard. The cameras showed it all. Investigators said the church had a security team, but the building's size and design made it hard to stop someone determined to cause harm. Afterward, everyone asked the same question. How can churches stay open and welcoming while also being truly safe? Joel Osteen spoke to his followers a few days later. He said they shouldn't live in fear. He told them to stay strong, trust God, and keep shining their light. He even prayed for Moreno and her family. Some people appreciated the message, but others thought he missed the point. Samuel's grandmother, along with many others, said it wasn't enough to talk about faith. They wanted action. They wanted better gun laws. They wanted change. The police spent a full year investigating the shooting. In February 2025, they handed the case to the district attorney's office to present to a grand jury. The investigation looked into the shooter's past, the officers who fired their weapons, and whether the church could have done more to prevent the tragedy. It became clear that people had tried to warn about Moreno for years. Family members even contacted the church, but nothing stopped her. Now, what happened that day will likely shape future laws, security protocols, and how churches respond to danger. All of this has put a bright light on Joel Osteen's message of positivity and prosperity. For years, he told people that God wanted them to succeed, that they should dream big, that they were meant to live their best life. But after the pandemic, when people lost their jobs and prices kept rising, that message didn't feel the same. For some, it felt out of touch. When bills are piling up, it's hard to hear that faith alone will bring blessing. Even some of Osteen's longtime followers have begun to question whether his words still speak to their real struggles. He still tells people that God is a bountiful God, not just a get-by God, but for many, that promise feels far away. And that gap between what he preaches and what people are going through keeps getting wider. Now, younger people are walking away from churches like Lakewood. Studies show that only 16% of millennials and just 15% of Gen Z go to church regularly. More and more, they call themselves spiritual, but not religious. They don't want giant buildings or flashy sermons. They want connection. They want meaning. They want something real. Lakewood still has tens of thousands of weekly visitors, but attendance and online views are slowly falling. Younger generations prefer smaller communities and digital experiences. They want faith to feel personal, not like a show. If Lakewood doesn't adapt, it may lose its place as the leader it once was.